Something that really irks me in a lot of stories is giving away all the mystery right off the bat. So basically showing the viewer or the reader all the things that the antagonist is doing to prevent the protagonist from achieving their goals, and just kind of letting you know all the hurdles that the protagonist is going to have to overcome. I feel like this gives away way too much of the story, and when I see this, I usually kind of tune out because I can already guess the whole plot all the way down to the very end of this. And it kind of draws me away from the story. An example of this would be, let's say the antagonist booby-trapped a doorknob to electrocute the protagonist when he goes to open it. And where this can go wrong is just showing us the process, showing us the antagonist actually setting the trap and going and walking away. In this scenario, it actually can be forgiven because the protagonist could approach the door and not know it's booby-trapped and kind of inch in closer and then be drawn away at the last moment, giving you a little suspense. But there's other ways that you could write this scene and have the protagonist do the same thing that would result in more mystery to the viewer or reader. So one option is don't show the antagonist booby-trapping the door, but show slightly that there's something wrong with the door. Right? You show it as the protagonist is approaching the door. You show like wires touching it and maybe some electric sounds or whatever, but there's something off about this door. And maybe not everybody catches it, right? The idea is that it should be very subtle. It shouldn't be super obvious that the protagonist is just oblivious to. It should be something that is hard to see. And then you have the protagonist not go through the door and thus not be killed, and then later, kind of in the background to other action, you show the end result of this. Somebody else approaches the door and is electrocuted. So whether it's, on the news and a TV somewhere, or someone's reading a newspaper and it's one of the headlines, I kind of like that. I kind of like the idea that as a viewer and a reader, you have to think and pay attention to what's going on to actually catch the whole story. I understand that more people would miss what happened, but the ones that didn't will be much more engaged in the story. Ultimately, this is all made much more easy if you're only taking the point of view of the protagonist. Meaning if it's a show or a movie, the camera pretty much stays with those characters. It's easier to keep the mystery that way because the audience pretty much only knows what the protagonist knows. And that can be interesting on its own because if the protagonist is confused, there's a good chance that the audience is too. And when the resolution finally comes, it's so much more rewarding as a viewer. This can be done from any style of perspective. I just think that stories need to have more mystery, and not just the murdery mystery kind of thing, but I mean things happening and we, the viewer, the audience, is unaware of how or why. I can't say this is my biggest pet peeve when it comes to stories, but it's up there for me. What are yours? What kind of things in stories where you're just kind of like, no, not having any of it, nope, staying away from this? Let me know, leave a comment down below, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you next week.